Going live. All righty. It's not ESPN's 30 for 30. However, it is my 98 for 98. The 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. I'm going to try to get it done. Well, I am getting it done. It's not 98 days, though, but it's pretty close. But I did say I was going to get it done by the time opening day started, which is unfortunately, it was today. The Giants lost 12,452 trillion to nothing to the Dallas Cowboys. But that's another video for another day. This one is about the 98th season. The final. There's it. My little episode here is all over tonight. Actually, I've got 90. I did 98 of these episodes. This is the 98th and final episode. The 98 and 98 seasons, the 2022 season of the New York Football Giants. Now, we just started the 2023 season, but so perhaps I'll do another video on that maybe, but it's not till the season's over. So the 2022 season was a huge breath of fresh air. The air's not so fresh now after the destruction that the Giants had at the hands of the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. But, you know, last year was a good, fresh breath of fresh air. I mean, Gettleman was gone after the 2021 season with Judge. Judge was fired. Gettleman stepped down. Now, as I once I mentioned this in my video last night. Now, whether, you know, because Gettleman had been with the Giants prior. So now whether Mara and Tish went up to him and said, "I'm going to let you go. So you can either step down, retire, or we're going to have to fire you. So you make the choice." So possibly that's what happened. But so Gettleman stepped down. They fired Judge, and so going into the 2022 season, you know, obviously we needed the two-pack. We needed to do some. We needed the coach and we needed the GM. You get the GM first. The GM hires the coach, and for the first time, you know, the Giants. You know, you got to give credit to John Mara. You know. They kind of went outside of the organization and all, and they brought in somebody they had like no ties to. And it was basically like, you know, here's the keys to the Ferrari. Okay, here, you know, they went in. You know, they brought in some really good candidates. I forgot exactly how many they brought in, but you know, obviously Shane was one of them. You know, coming from Buffalo. And, you know, because he was the assistant GM there, you know, the winning organization, you know, he had been around. Actually, you know, he had ties, you know, for a short period of time with Bill Parcells, right? So, you know, bringing him in, Shane had done a very, very, you know, it was certainly looks, even the Giants lost 40-0 on Sunday Night Football. Shane still looks like the man. I mean, he's bringing guys in and giving them to the coaches, and they're putting the talent on the field. But Shane's done a very good job so far. So, you can't argue with Shane at all, not at all. We wound up being a very good pick for a GM. So then it was time to get the coach, and that's where the familiarity came in. He wanted to bring in Brian Daboll, and still, even though we lost 40-0 to the Cowboys last night, yep, Teddy's in the house. Even though we lost 40-0, right? You know, Daboll's still the right guy for the job. So, but that's where the familiarity came in. You know, Shane. We brought in some other guys for coach as well, but you know, obviously Daboll won out, and so you know we had the GM, we had the coach. Then of course it was time to get the coordinators. Now they kept a couple of them: Henderson, our secondary coach, McGahee, our special teams coach. You know, Ronnie Barnes, with the trainers and stuff like that. So that we didn't get rid of everybody. I mean, certainly kept some guys, that's for sure. But we brought in obviously a new offensive coordinator. Kafka. I brought in the new defensive coordinator. Wink Martindale. I mean, the defense did a very good job last night. They did a very good job in 2022. So, thankfully, the Ravens let Martindale go, and he was available, and we brought him in. So, we got we got a great coach, a great GM, and two great coordinators. So, Giants really, really lucked out. So, 2022, the Giants didn't have a lot of salary cap space. So Shane was kind of handcuffed. We had 2 first-round picks, which we're going to go over them in just a minute or so here. But we didn't have a lot of salary cap space to bring in a lot of some free agents. So Shane was a little handcuffed, initially. But between bringing in guys. And even when they did bring in guys off the street, the coaching staff got them up to speed, and they did a lot of guys that did a decent job for the Giants. So we had a very good draft. So things were certainly on the up and up, and the Giants wind up obviously with a 9-7-1 record, very impressive. Went to the playoffs, got a playoff win. Worse than the divisional round, they got annihilated by the Eagles. So, but so now the Giants, with their loss last night to the Cowboys, they are 0-6. They lost 3 times to the Cowboys, and they've lost 3 times to the Eagles. So, still got a ways to go to catch those 2 teams, but things are certainly looking better. But so the 2022 season, right? Obviously now they have playing 17 games, so they only played 3 preseason games. So how did they do? Well, they went 2-1. The first preseason game was on August 11th. They were the away team against the New England Patriots. They won 23-21. The next week was August 21st. They were home against the Cincinnati Bengals, 25-22. That's when Kayvon Thibodeau wound up he got like a low block on like the guy took his knee out. So that hurt him. And he wound up missing a little bit of time with that, but it is what it is. But the Giants won 25-22. So 2-0. Then of course they had their third and their final game, their annual contest against the New York Jets. The Giants this time with the away team. On Sunday, August 28th, they played the Jets at MetLife Stadium, and they lost a close one, 31-27. So the Giants finished the preseason with the record of 2-1. So what does Wikipedia have to say about the 2022 New York Football Giants? I got a little bit to say here. The 2022 season for the New York Giants was the 98th in the National Football League. Their 47th season playing in the Meadowlands, and their 13th playing at New MetLife Stadium. Following the conclusion of the 2021 season, head coach Joe Judge was fired, and general manager Dave Gettleman retired. In the offseason, the Giants hired Bills front office assistant Joe Schoen to become the general manager, who in turn hired Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll to become the 22nd head coach in franchise history. The Giants started 2-0 for the first time since 2016 and had their best start since 2008. The Giants surpassed their 2021 win total after week 6 win over the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, that gave them their 5th win, because in 2021 they only had 4 wins. With a win over the Washington Commanders in Week 15, they guaranteed their first non-losing season since 2016 and their first since 2009, in which they never had a losing record at any stage. Despite struggling in the second half of the season, because the Giants wound up playing the second half of the season, they played a better bunch of teams. Let's see. Despite struggling in the second half of the season, the Giants clinched a playoff spot and a winning record for the first time since 2016, and their first without Eli Manning since 2002, with the Week 17 win over the Colts, and they finished 9-7-1. As a sixth seed in the NFC, the Giants beat Minnesota, the Vikings 31-24 in the wild card round, getting their first playoff win since the Super Bowl, right, back in 2012, right, Super Bowl 46, and their first since the 2000 NFC Championship without Manning, because they went to the playoffs in 2002, obviously without Manning, but they lost in the wild card round to the 49ers 39-38. That's when the Giants were up, I believe it was 38-14, and they wound up losing the game. Speaking of a collapse, my goodness. But and however, the Giants season would end the following week with a 38-7 loss to their arch rival and eventual NFC champion, the Philadelphia Eagles, in the divisional round. Let's see here. I have a couple quick things here real fast. It says general manager, fourth-year general manager Dave Gettleman retired from the New York Giants on January 10th, 2022. Gettleman drafted Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, among others. On January 21st, 2022, the Giants hired Joe Schoen, the former assistant GM for the Buffalo Bills, as their new general manager. So let's see here. January 10th, Gettleman retired, and 11 days later. So they went to business. They rolled their sleeves up and they went to business. And 11 days later, they had Schoen. New York Giants fired second-year head coach Joe Judge on January 11th. So on January 10th, Gettleman retired. And on the next day, the Giants fired Joe Judge, who led the Giants to a second-place finish in the NFC East after his first season as head coach. On January 28th, 2022, Brian Daboll, the former offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, was hired as head coach. So Schoen was brought in on the 21st, and exactly pretty much 1 week later, he hired Daboll. So they got the ball rolling, right? They got the ball rolling. So by the end of January, we had our GM and we had our head coach. So things were off and running. But as I said, the Giants had some good draft picks coming up. They had 2 first-round picks, but they were a little handicapped as far as with the salary cap. And unfortunately, they had to let one of their guys, James Bradbury, had to let him go because they didn't have money to pay him. So it is what it is. Let's see here. Whoops. So let's go to the Giants, shall we? Let's go to their draft. All right. So now I said the Giants, they wound up, was it 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 11 picks. They had 11 picks. Their first 2 picks in the first round, they took Kayvon Thibodeau, pick number 5 overall, and Evan Neal. They picked number 7. So they had pick 5 and they had pick 7. So they had, one of the things that the Giants, and the one nice thing, and even I tell you what, let me tell you what, one more time. Let me tell you what, and even what the Giants found out last season, and you gotta tip your cap and you gotta thank, the Cowboys and the Eagles, all right, for showing the Giants. Obviously, not only, what happened last night with the Cowboys annihilating the Giants, but more so showing them how important it is in the trenches, right? The Giants' offensive line was absolutely horrible, last night. Daniel Jones was running for his life the whole night and everything. But those 2 teams showed you how important it is. You win the game starting in the trenches. You can have the best quarterback in the world. You can have the best wide receiver, running back, all this. But if you can't win the trenches, you're not going anywhere. And so, as I said, thankfully, the Eagles and the Cowboys are showing the Giants, that's what you need. You need to step it up, and that's what they did. Obviously we're not there yet, okay, but the first two players, Kayvon Thibodeaux, defensive end or edge rusher, whatever you want to call him, and then of course Evan Neal, who's going to wind up playing right tackle, who's been playing right tackle. So the Giants took their first two picks, which were both in the first round, and they placed one on the offensive line and the other one on the defensive line. So they're trying to, beef up their offensive and defensive line, because that's where it is. I mean, that's what the Eagles and the Cowboys keep showing them. You got to win in the trenches. So two very good picks. Kayvon is his rookie season in 2022. A nice season. Evan Neal has some work to do. He wasn't always that bad, but he wasn't always that good either. He did have some issues. He's working on it and everything, but hopefully he'll get it turned around. But I think the Giants took two very good picks in the first round. Then their second pick, their pick in the second round, which was the third overall pick, they took Wan'Dale Robinson, from Kentucky, a wide receiver. Now, this one they kind of had me scratching my head a little bit. I don't follow. What are you going to say? I follow the draft and some of the mock drafts and stuff like that. I don't watch all the film, and I don't have time for that. So I take the other people's advice. The people that do the mock drafts and all and everything. And I just so when they took Wan'Dale Robinson at number 43, I just think I hadn't seen anybody at all. I don't think mock Wan'Dale Robinson even in the second round to anybody. But the Giants liked his skill set, and so they wound up taking him. Unfortunately, he got injured 2 times. He got injured he caught one pass in week 1 against the Titans, and he hurt his knee. Then later on in the season, he came back. He injured himself again against the Lions, and he was out for the rest of the season. So he is injury prone. At least he was last year anyway. So, but he does have a very a nice skill set to him, a wide receiver. If he can stay healthy, which remains to be seen, because he didn't stay healthy in 2022. He'd be a decent pick. I think they probably still could have done better with him. Then could have done better picking somebody else other than him, but it is what it is. Their third round pick, they had 2 of them. They took Joshua Ezeudu, an offensive lineman from North Carolina, and then they took Cordell Flott, a cornerback from LSU. Now, Ezeudu has got some versatility to him. I think in college, if I remember correctly, I think he played every offensive position, I think except for center. I could be wrong on that, but I think he did not play center at all. However, he's got a lot of versatility to him. And there were times, I think it was his senior season, he played 2 different offensive line positions on the same drive, right? One time he might be like the left guard, and then the next play he might, for whatever reason, be the left tackle. So he had some versatility to him. And they're kind of hoping that he'll work his way, being a third round. He's a guard for the most part. That's where the Giants have him at. So they have visions of taking a guard in the third round. So I'm sure they have visions upon somewhere along the line Joshua Ezeudu, the 67th overall pick in the draft, becoming a starting guard for them. You don't take a guard in the third round just for some quality depth, right? You take him and you're kind of hoping that he'll work his way into becoming a starter. Then they took Cordell Flott because, a cornerback, the 81st overall pick from LSU. His problem is that he is very light, 6'1". So I mean, that's not a bad height, but I mean, I think he's put on a little bit of weight since then. But according to Pro Football Reference, he's 165 pounds. I think he was like 170 last year, maybe 175, but still, that's not very heavy. You kind of wonder, is that with his size at 6'1", 170 pounds, you're kind of like a beanpole. I'm 6'1". If I was 170 pounds, I'd be a freaking beanpole. All right. So you're kind of wondering with his weight, his size and all, right? Is that something, without him putting on extra pounds, if he stays that light, you just kind of wonder, can he take a beating, game in and game out at that height and without getting injured, So, so they took him. Then, of course, then they took in the fourth round from San Diego State. They took, actually, they had 2 picks in the fourth round. Their first one, with pick number 112 overall, was Daniel Bellinger. Now, he's a very, very good blocking tight end. He has some very good hands. This year in 2023, they brought in Darren Waller. So now between Darren Waller and Daniel Bellinger, that's a nice 1-2 punch. They can run a lot of 12 personnel. With Saquon, and have the 2 tight ends, and so for the most part, the 1 tight end can go out and pass, run a pass route, or if need be, they got Daniel Bellinger in there and block. So very, very good overall, very good pick for the New York Giants. He got injured in 2022 against Jacksonville, I believe it was, but very good pick. If he can stay healthy, okay, I'm sure he'll be one of the Giants tight ends for quite a few years to come. So it was a very, very good pick, Daniel Bellinger in the fourth round. The next one they took is Dane Belton. All right, he winds up being a safety from Iowa. He was pick 114. The Giants had picks 112 and 114. So they took Dane Belton, the safety from Iowa. Now he's trying to work his way into he's not the starter this year in 2023, but because we got Penei and McKinney, but he's probably like maybe the third safety on the depth chart. He got some in 2022. He got some time because McKinney wound up hurting himself in the bye week on vacation. He hurt his hand pretty badly, so McKinney missed some time. So Belton stepped in and got some. Belton did an okay job. He's not an all-pro, Hall of Famer, nothing like that, but he stepped in. He got some valuable reps, especially when McKinney was hurt. So that's certainly going to help him going forward. Once again, is he, as I said, an all-pro? No. But, he did a decent job. Right? Did a decent job. Then they had 3 fifth-round picks. They had Micah McFadden. They took a linebacker from Indiana. I believe he was a captain on his football team. And actually I think he has the starting job next to Bobby Okereke this year. So he is in 2023. I'm talking about, but last year, he got some reps. I think he was the only rookie who played in every game last year because all the other rookies wound up getting injured a little bit and maybe get nicked up, or some got injured and missed a lot of time. But Micah McFadden played in every game. He stayed healthy, and he got a lot of valuable reps, and it paid off this year. I think he's the starting inside linebacker next to Bobby Okereke. So Micah McFadden, a very good, once again. Is he a pro bowler or anything? No. But is he some good, at least depth? Yep. Yes, absolutely. Micah McFadden, pick in the fifth round, pick 146, a linebacker from Indiana. Then they took DJ Davidson. They actually had picks 146 and 147. Right? They took DJ Davidson, a defensive tackle from Arizona State. He got some reps in there. I'm not sure how many. He didn't play. He didn't play the whole season because he got injured. Where we at? He played in 5 games. He didn't start any, but he played in 5. Then he got injured, so he missed the rest of the season. So he's still on the roster this year in 2023. And once again, somebody, he's just depth, right? He's coming back from injury. You're kind of hoping, maybe, he'll get some more reps and maybe he'll get a little bit better as time goes by. But as of right now, he's a 5th rounder. He's a defensive tackle Got him from Arizona State. A decent pick. Just some depth. Then they took Marcus McKeithen, an offensive lineman, pretty much guard from North Carolina. So we took pretty much two guards. We took Joshua Zudu and Marcus McKeithen, both from North Carolina. They pretty much were both guards. McKeithen as I said, right now you can certainly see he sees some depth right now. Now, will he ever work his way into a starting position? Who knows? But he got injured early in training camp last year, and he missed the whole season. So he got no meaningful reps whatsoever in 2022 for the Giants, sadly. But he made it through training camp this year. He's on the roster in 2023. So, if they get him in there and get him some reps, every rep he gets will be invaluable. He got some reps in preseason as well, too. So hopefully, he'll work his way and maybe get more reps. He'll get better, and he'll be, if nothing else, hopefully he'll be some quality depth for the New York Giants going forward. Right. Then their last pick, wound up being, a very good one. In the sixth round, it took Darian Beavers from Cincinnati. Now he was a linebacker. His thing was he wound up getting injured, and he got injured in preseason. He was having a very good preseason, and he got injured, and he didn't play at all. So he got no meaningful snaps during the regular season at all for the Giants. Now he is I believe that he's on the practice squad this year. I think because he got injured, he's working his way back from injury. So I think he's maybe not quite up to speed yet. But thankfully, he's on the practice squad because he was, when healthy last year, he was having a very nice preseason for the Giants until he got injured. So we'll have to wait and see with him. Is somebody he can work his way back onto the team? Can he get better from his injury that he sustained? So we'll have to wait and see. But, for the most part, if you look at this draft class, every one of these guys, all 11 of these picks are still on a year later. We're not talking 5 years later now. This is the following season. Every one of these 11 are still on the Giants team. One of them's on practice squad, but the other 10 are all on the team, right? So the Giants did very, very good. And with their draft picks from last year. And then their picks this season, all their picks this season are on the team. So they wound up with, I think, like 18 picks. And I think 17 out of the 18 are on the roster, except for, I think, Darian Beavers is the one. He's on practice squad. So, they've done a very good job with drafting Shane. So, and the scouting department. But there's the 11 picks, they got some good picks. Especially going forward. If nothing else, they got themselves a couple starters, and then they got some depth pieces. But so the 11 draft picks they had, they didn't do too bad at all, right? All right, so that wraps up the draft. So let's go here. The Giants statistics. What did the Giants do? The Giants 21.5 points a game they scored, and they gave up 21.8 points per game. So they were right at the run of the mill. They scored 365 points. They gave up 371. Daniel Jones had a very good year. He was 9-6-1. He completed 67.2% of his passes. He had 15 touchdowns, only had 5 interceptions. He did very, very good. And fumbles, was it 6? Is that what I saw? He had 6 fumbles all year. Not that he didn't lose all 6, but he had 6 fumbles. So he really cut his turnovers down a lot. Davis Webb was in there. He started the final game of the season. That was a loss to the Eagles. It was 22-16. But he had one touchdown. He had no interceptions. He completed 57.5% of his passes. This was Davis Webb. This was the final game of the season when the Giants basically had second and third stringers in there against the Eagles' first team. And Tyrod Taylor got in there. He got in 3 different games. He was 6 out of 8. He had 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Let's see here. Saquon had a very good year. He had 1,312 yards rushing. He had 10 rushing touchdowns. Daniel Jones had 708 yards rushing. So between Daniel Jones and Saquon, they had over 2,000 yards rushing between the two of them. Matt Breida had 220 yards rushing. Gary Brightwell had 141. So, I mean, they had 2,519 rushing yards. They had 21 rushing touchdowns. They averaged 4.8 yards per carry. Very, very good. The problem was that they gave up 5.2 yards per carry. Their rushing defense was absolutely abysmal. They gave up 2,451 rushing yards all season. They gave up 16 touchdowns, 5.2 yards a carry. Not very good at all, their rushing defense. Let's see, as far as receiving, Barkley tied with the lead. Richie James and Barkley both had 57 receptions. Matt Breida had 20 receptions coming out of the backfield. Brightwell had 5. Wandale Robinson had 23. Then he got injured. He played in only 6 games. So basically he missed 10, 11 games, and he still wound up with 23 receptions. Kadarius Toney, the low-life loser, he even had 2 receptions. He only played in 2 games for the Giants, and he had 2 receptions. What a loser. Daniel Bellinger had 30 receptions. Darius Slayton had 46. Once again, Darius Slayton led the team in receiving yards. Once again, he had 46 receptions, but the 724 yards. That's the 3rd time out of 4 years he had over 700 receiving yards. Isaiah Hodgins, who came to the Giants halfway through the season, Hodgins had 33 receptions. Lawrence Cager had 13. He was a backup tight end. Sterling Shepard had 13. He played 3 games, had 13 receptions. Then he got injured towards ACL, and he missed the whole season. David Sills had 11 catches. Tanner Hudson, a tight end, he had 10. Marcus Johnson had 9. Of course, we had Colin Johnson, but Colin Johnson injured his ACL, and he missed all. He was having a nice training camp / preseason. Tore his ACL, missed the whole season. And unfortunately, I think that might have slowed him down a little bit this year because he's not on the team. The Giants wound up cutting him. Let's see. Chris Myrick, he had 7 receptions. Kenny Golladay, he even had 6 receptions in there. Kenny Golladay got his first touchdown for the Giants in 2 seasons. The last game of the season against the Eagles. Caught a touchdown pass. And Nick Vannett had 4 receptions too. So the Giants had a bunch of guys who caught passes. We had no prolific passing game because we didn't have a phenomenal wide receivers. We didn't have a ton of weapons to throw the ball to. And our offensive line was suspect. So the object was to get the ball in Daniel Jones's hands and get it out of his hands as fast as possible so he wouldn't be back there, a sitting duck back there. Graham Gano was the man. What else can you say? We just re-signed him to a 3-year extension, which is fantastic. Gano was 29 out of 32, 90.6% field goal percentage. He made 32 out of 34 on extra points. I think the 2 extra points he missed was against the Lions, but it was very windy in a game against the Lions, and he missed both those extra points against the Lions. It was windy conditions, and it wouldn't have mattered. The Giants lost 31-18. Even if we made the 2 extra points, it would have been 31-20. Let's see. Jamie Gillen averaged 46.8 yards a punt. Very good. However, his net was 39.7, so he was giving up like an average of about 7 yards a punt return. He had 9 touchbacks. He got 26 of his punts inside the 20, 35.1%, but he would have a knack every now and then. He did have a punt blocked, but every now and then he would out-punt the coverage. And, so that's something he's got to work on. He's got a strong leg, but he's got the hang time. He's got to get better. Because sometimes the punts would come on too much of a line drive. He'd kick it maybe 60 yards or so downfield, but it wouldn't have much hang time, and he would outkick his coverage, which is not good. So that's something he has to work on. The Giants here. Let's see. The Giants, what do they have? They had 41 sacks. They gave up 49, so not very good. When you give up almost 50 sacks in a season, even a 17-game season, though, too. So they gave up about 3 sacks a game. but they only got 41 sacks. So Dexter Lawrence, or the sexy Dexy, he led the team, I think, with 7.5. Thibodeau had 4. A bunch of guys had 1. You see, the thing is now, Azeez Ojulari had 5.5, but he only played in 7 games. If he played the whole season, he would have probably close to 15 sacks. But the thing is, with the Wink Martindale, right, positionless defense, he's got guys coming from all over the place. So he's going to have a bunch of people get sacks. Now he won't have like 1 or 2 guys get 10, 12, 13 sacks, each, but he's going to have a bunch of guys get a lot of sacks. So he had last year, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. He had 19 different players get sacks. 19. We had a grand total of 41 sacks and 19 different players. So he's a blitzomaniac, and he's going to get guys coming from all over. That's why we had safeties, we had cornerbacks, we had linebackers, we had defensive tackles and edge rushers. A boatload of guys. 19 different guys get sacks for the Giants last season. So he was bringing pressure from everywhere. So it wasn't just from the edge rushers or the defensive tackles or the linebackers. It was cornerbacks and safeties getting in on the action too. But I mean, for the most part, they did a very, very good job. Two of the things the Giants were very good at, which was wound up being huge for them, was in 2022, was the red zone. When the offense got in the red zone, they usually scored touchdowns. They were really high up there in the league average as far as getting in the red zone and scoring touchdowns in the red zone. Their offense did a fantastic job of that. And on the flip side, their defense, when the other team got into the red zone, their Giants defense did a very good job at stopping them from scoring touchdowns. So the red zone was very, very good to the New York Giants last season. Let's hopefully can carry over into 2023. But so I mean, things really, really worked out well for the Giants. They didn't have a ton of offensive firepower, but they played a weaker schedule that was favored them quite a bit, and they made it work. They were 9-7-1. So let's go over the games here, shall we? Yeah, absolutely. Let's go over the game. The first game of the season. Now, this was kind of, they fell behind against on the road against the Tennessee Titans. What was the score here? I know they fell behind. They did this so many times. They always seem to start slow. Giants were down 13-0 at halftime. And they came back and they won 21-20. Of course, the Titans, Bullock missed a field goal as time expired, so to help the Giants win the football game. But so the Giants could use all any luck they could get, right? So, but it was a very, very good game. The Giants were down 13-0 at halftime. They came back and they won 21-20. So they started off 1-0. Then the second week, they, against not a super duper good team, but at home, as I said, they played some weaker teams, some weaker opponents here. They played the Carolina Panthers in week 2 at home, and they won 19-16. So they won a lot of one score games, The following week, they played the Cowboys at home. And it was a Monday Night Football, and they lost 23-16. They were winning. I think they were winning 13. Was it 13-7? Saquon Barkley it was in the third quarter. Had a 36-yard touchdown, and the Giants were up 13-6. But then the Cowboys scored 17 straight points before the Giants could kick their final field goal of the game. But the Giants were winning in the third quarter. They just couldn't hold the lead, and they lost in a one-score game. Then the following week, the Chicago Bears came to town. Not a very good team. So the Giants at home hosted the Bears, and they won 20-12. Then the Giants went to London, and they were the away team. Whoop-de-doo, I know. But they played the Green Bay Packers, and they beat the Packers. They were down Was it 17-3? I think. Let's see here. Yep, it was 17-3, and the Giants came back and won 27-22. What really made it very exciting was, the Packers had the ball, and they and of course that means Aaron Rodgers got the ball, and they were down inside I'm gonna say around the 10-yard line or so, and they had 4 shots to get in. And Aaron Rodgers couldn't get it done. His fourth down pass wound up getting tipped at the line of scrimmage and fell incomplete. The Giants wound up coming out of there with a victory, down 17-0 or 17-3, and they came out of there with the victory. It was very, really, really good. Yeah, very, very surprising. Very, very surprising because not many people, especially going up against Aaron Rodgers, he's beaten us quite a few times. But, being down like that, and I don't think anybody gave us a chance of winning. But the Giants held on, and they came back in the second half, and they wound up coming home with the victory. So then the Giants were 4-1. Then they were beat. Once again, it was another one-score game. The Giants won 27-22. They won by 5 points. Then the next week, another exciting game. They held off the Baltimore Ravens. The Giants were down. They came back, and they went ahead 24-20. And the Ravens got the ball, and Lamar Jackson threw an interception. Julian Love picked the pass off, and the Giants, I think, were pretty much able to run the clock out. And they wound up winning 24-20. And it was just, a great, exciting game. But once again, they beat a good opponent and by one score, by a score or less, and they were 5-1. Then the following week, they went into Jacksonville, and they played Jacksonville in the early part of the season because toward the end of the season, the Jacksonville was on a roll, and Jacksonville actually wound up winning their division. But the Giants were winning 23-17. Jacksonville got the ball. Trevor Lawrence was marching them down the field. They had no timeouts left. He threw a pass. I can't remember who caught it, but whoever it was caught the ball around the 2-yard line. But the Giants stood the receiver up just before he got into the end zone, and he got tackled around the 2-yard line. The clock ran out. The Giants went off the field winners 23-17. So now the Giants are 6-1. It's like, holy crap. But the following week, 2 fumbles on punt returns by Richie James gave the Seahawks 10 points. I mean, the Seahawks only had 277 yards of offense, so it wasn't like they were walking up and down the field. In this game, they shut Saquon Barkley down very, very well. The Seahawks won 27-13. The Giants win Seattle, and Seattle wound up winning. So now the Giants were 6-2. Then they had their bye week. They came back and they played a very poor Houston Texans team, and the Giants won by one score, 24-16. Now the Giants are 7-2. Then the following week, this is when they started losing some games. They started playing some good teams. They played Dallas again. They played they had to play the Eagles twice. They played Minnesota. They played Detroit, who almost made the playoffs. So they started playing some good teams, and they started losing. They lost 31-18 to the Lions, and now the Giants were 7-3. Then the Giants on Thanksgiving went into Dallas. They were winning, was it 10-7 at halftime? It was 10-7. Or 13-7. Graham Gano kicked a 47-yard field goal as time expired in the first half, and the Giants went into the locker room up 13-7. Looking good. But the Cowboys scored 3 straight touchdowns, and they were up 28-13 before the Giants scored their final touchdown with 8 seconds left to go to make it 28-20. So the Giants lost to a very good Dallas team. And now the Giants were 7-4. The following week, the Giants at home played the Commanders to a 20-20 tie in overtime. Graham Gano, I think it was a 56 or 57-yard field goal. As time expired in overtime, he kicked it. It was like a yard short, maybe 2 yards short at the most. Shame, but it was a tie, so at least it wasn't a loss. And now after the tie, they were 7-4-1. Then the following week, the Eagles would come to town, and the Eagles just killed the Giants, 48-22. Just a total embarrassment. Now the Giants are 7-5-1. The following week, they would go on the road and they would play the Commanders for the second time in 3 weeks. They played the Commanders and they beat the Commanders 20-12 to go 8-5-1. But the reason why they won 20-12 was it wasn't from their offense; it was from Kayvon Thibodeau. He had a sack, a strip sack with a fumble, recovered the fumble, and ran it into the end zone. He got the quadfecta: the sack, the forced fumble, the recovered fumble, and the touchdown, all in one play. But it was because of Kayvon Thibodeau the Giants won this game, or the defense, shall I say, because at the end of the game, the Commanders had the ball down deep inside Giants territory. On a 4th down, they went for it because they had to. They were down by 8. And Darnay Holmes was wrapped all over this guy receiver in the end zone. I forgot who the receiver was, but they didn't call a foul. It was a foul. Didn't call a penalty, which they should have. But the ball fell incomplete. The Giants wound up winning, so they won 20-12. But if Kayvon didn't have that fumble recovery and all that, possibly the Giants had one last touchdown. Say the score was tied at 12-12, or the Giants were up 13-12 or whatever. Washington had the ball deep in Giants territory at the end of the game. So instead of on 4th down going for a touchdown to tie it up, they just go for a field goal, kick the field goal, and possibly win the game. So the Giants won. They were 8-5-1. They would lose a tough game to the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, how far? This was a 60-yard field goal. As time expired, it was 24-24. Looks like it was going to go into overtime, but 61-yard field goal. Greg Joseph kicked a 61-yard field goal as time expired, and Minnesota won. I mean, the Giants in the past 5 years or so have lost games on the final play of the game, like 60-plus yard field goals, I think 3 or 4 times. Graham Gano did one of them. 60-plus yard field goals at the final play of the game, like 3 times in the past 5 or 6 years. Just unbelievable. So the Giants, after they lost to the Vikings, were 8-6-1. Then they would beat the Colts, and that was very important. The Colts were a very bad team. The Colts came to town. The Giants had to win that one to make the playoffs. They destroyed the Colts 38-10. They ran all over them. It was a good game. They beat somebody they should have beat by a lot. Colts had nothing to play for. The Giants had everything to play for, and it showed. The Giants won 38-10. Now the Giants were 9-6-1. And they clinched the wild card berth. So in the final game of the season, they didn't need it because they had clinched their position. They weren't going to move up or move down if they won or lost against the Eagles. So the Giants put their backups in the final game of the season against the Eagles. They lost 22-16. So, the Giants finished 9-7-1. Very, very good. Very good season. So what does Wikipedia have to say about the 2022 NFL season? 2022 NFL season was the 103rd season in the history of the National Football League. It was the 103rd for the NFL, 98th for the Giants, because the NFL starts in 1920 and the Giants started in 1925. So the Giants are 5 years younger than the NFL is. The season began on September 8th, 2022, with the defending Super Bowl champion, the Rams, falling to Buffalo in the NFL kickoff game, and ended on January 8th, 2023. The playoffs started on January 14 and concluded with the Super Bowl, the league's championship game, at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, on February 12th, with Kansas City defeating Philadelphia. The former Washington Redskins, after 2 seasons of using the placeholder name, the Washington Football Team, were renamed the Washington Commanders prior to the start of the season. The Week 17 game between Buffalo and Cincinnati was canceled after Buffalo safety Damar Hamlin suffered a non-fatal cardiac arrest on the field of play. It was the first regular season game to be canceled and not rescheduled since the 1987 NFLPA player strike. But Damar Hamlin is back. He's on the team in Buffalo, doing good. Thank goodness. He made a full recovery, so good for him. Good. It's great to hear. All right, so let's go over, the AFC here. Went to the playoffs and all this stuff. And so Buffalo won the AFC East with a record of 13-3. It should have been another game, but the game was canceled. Remember, so they only played 16 games. Miami with a record of 9-8 went to the wild card team, the AFC North. Cincinnati Bengals with a record of 12-4 won. The Ravens with a record of 10-7 were the other wild card team. AFC South, Jacksonville Jaguars with a record of 9-8 won that division. In the AFC West, Kansas City with a record of 14-3 won that division, and the Los Angeles Chargers with the third wild card team with a record of 10-7. So now in the playoffs, Cincinnati beat Baltimore 24-17. Buffalo beat Miami 34-31. And Jacksonville beat the Chargers 31-30. So it's 3 very good wild card games. So in the divisional round, Cincinnati beat Buffalo 27-10, and Kansas City beat Jacksonville 27-20. So in the AFC Championship game, the Chiefs beat the Bengals 23-22, sending the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. So in the NFC, the Eagles won the NFC East with a record of 14-3. The Cowboys with a record of 12-5 were a wild card team. The Giants with a record of 9-7-1 were another wild card team. NFC North, the Vikings with a record of 13-4 won that division. NFC South, a record of 8-9. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won that division, and they hosted a playoff game. The NFC West, San Francisco with a record of 13-4 won that division, and the Seattle Seahawks with a record of 9-8 were the third wild card team. So in the wild card round, the Cowboys beat Tampa Bay 31-14. San Francisco beat Seattle 41-23, and the Giants beat Minnesota 31-24. So the Giants got to the playoffs, and they won a playoff game, first time since the 2011 Super Bowl, which was played in 2012. But so it had been over 10 years since the Giants had won a playoff game. Let's see. So in the divisional round, San Francisco beat Dallas 19-12, and the Eagles pummeled the Giants 38-7. It was not pretty. So in the championship game, the Eagles beat the 49ers, and the reason why was because the 49ers, all their quarterbacks were hurt, and they had nobody who could throw a football. And the Eagles went and win. They won 31-7. So that sent the Eagles to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. And it wound up being a very, very good Super Bowl. Very, very entertaining. Either team could have won. Both teams deserved to win. The Chiefs wound up winning. The Chiefs outlasted the Eagles, and they wound up winning 38-35. Very exciting game. See, the Eagles scored first, so they were up 7-0. Then the Chiefs in the first quarter scored a touchdown to tie it up 7-7. So going in the second quarter, it was 7-7. Then the Eagles scored a touchdown 8 seconds into the second quarter to go up 14-7. Then the Chiefs ran a fumble recovery back. Jalen Hurts fumbled the ball. And let's see, Nick Bolton picked it up, ran it back 36 yards for a touchdown and make it 14-14. Jalen Hurts on a 4-yard touchdown run put the Eagles up 21-14, and then they kicked a 35-yard field goal as time expired in the first half to go up 24-14 at the half. They were up by 10 points at the half. Second half in the third. So in the third quarter, Isaiah Pacheco on a 1-yard touchdown run and their extra point it was 24-21 favored the Eagles. Then the Eagles kicked a field goal for the final score in the third quarter to go up 27-21. But in the fourth quarter, that's when the Chiefs started coming back. Chiefs scored three times in the fourth quarter. The first time, Kadarius Toney on a 5-yard touchdown reception to make it put the Chiefs up 28-27. Sky Moore got a 4-yard touchdown reception from Mahomes. Put the Chiefs up 35-27. Then Hurts had a 2-yard touchdown run with 5:15 left to go in the fourth. The 2-point conversion was good, tied the game at 35. Then with 8 seconds left to go, a 27-yard field goal by Butker with 8 seconds to go. They had a 12-play, 66-yard drive. Took 5 minutes and 7 seconds off the clock and left 8 seconds on the clock. And so it was 38-35. The Eagles had the ball, and they still had a shot. They had, they had the ball. I can't remember. They had around the 40-yard line or so, their own 40. And Jalen Hurts tried to throw a Hail Mary. The ball went like 20. I think somebody might have stepped on his foot. as he was trying to throw the ball, one of his offensive linemen, but it went like 20 yards, 20, 25 yards. It was nowhere near the end zone. And it landed incomplete, and the Chiefs rejoiced, and so did I, because I can't stand the Philadelphia Eagles. I respect them. They were a very good team and all. I can't stand them basically because of their fans. Yeah, I absolutely, totally despise the Eagle fans. I mean, they were a very good team. They were certainly the best team in the NFC last year. They certainly deserved to go to the Super Bowl. It wound up being a very, very good Super Bowl. Either team could have won, but the Chiefs wound up prevailing, and so they got themselves another Super Bowl win. So that pretty much wraps up. I've done 98 seasons, and I got it done just in time for the beginning of the football season. So the Giants right now, the 2023 season that they're embarking upon right now is the 99th season in the history of the New York Football Giants. I do know the Giants have something planned like for next season. I'm sure that they're going to have a patch on it, because in 2024 will be the 100th season in the history of the New York Giants. So they're going to have a patch on their uniform. I'm sure when their home games are, I'm sure they'll have some banners around the stadium and stuff like that. I'm sure they'll have some other stuff to commemorate the 100th year of the Giants. It's huge. They started in 1925, and 2024 will be the 100th season in the history of the New York Giants. So next season will be a very special season indeed. But the 2023 season is here upon us. Fortunately, the Giants didn't get off to a good start. They lost on Sunday Night Football, 40-0 to the Dallas Cowboys, which is the worst blowout loss, worst shutout in the entire history of the Giants and the Cowboys. The games that they played together. It's the worst shutout loss ever experienced. So the Giants are a better team than that. The Cowboys are not 40 points better than the Giants. They were 40 points better than the Giants, I guess, last night when they played, but overall they're not. The Giants have closed the gap on the Cowboys, and hopefully when the Giants play the Cowboys again later on in the season, hopefully the Giants can return the favor. They're not going to beat them 40-0, but hopefully if things go in the Giants' favor, hopefully the Giants will beat the Cowboys, because the Cowboys have won 12 of the last 13 games against the Giants. So it is what it is. But the Giants, this week coming up, have the Arizona Cardinals, who are not very good. So hopefully the Giants can get a win and even the record at 1-1. But the Giants have a very hard schedule early. Out of the first 6 games, 4 of them on prime time. So they got some hard, tough games coming up. And the Giants can actually have a better team in 2023 than they did in 2022, and actually wind up with either the same record or a worse record. It is what it is. But so I said, so that pretty much wraps up this wild ride I've been on with the New York Giants, the 98 seasons of the Giants, which started in 1925, and the 98 season was the 2022 season. So I had a lot of fun. If you watched any of my episodes, I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I had enjoyed doing it. Now, what I'm going to start doing very soon is I'm going to start going over it's going to take years, okay? But I'm going to go over every individual game the New York Football Giants have ever had, going back to 1925, whether it's a preseason game, an exhibition game, or a regular season game. I'm going to go over every game that the New York Giants have ever had. Well, I'm going to go up to probably about 1980 or so. But I'm going to start in 1925. So I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning, right? The preseason, there was no preseason. They were all exhibition games back then, pretty much. Well, they had some exhibition games before the season, and they had exhibition games after the season was over. It was all about trying to make money. So my new series coming up, right, is after this one. I may not start it for maybe a week or so, whatever. But my new series coming up will be I'll be going over every game from the 1925 to maybe around 1980, because you can go on YouTube and you can watch highlights, or you can watch almost every game pretty much for the Giants, like from 1980 on. So instead of me like talking about it on a video where I have no highlights or nothing like that, especially when you can go on YouTube and watch the full game right? Instead of me talking about that, you can go on YouTube and watch the whole game. And plus you can also go online and look up what the stats are and all that stuff, right? So I'm going to go back until the beginning, especially where, there's not a lot of information out there, right? Especially online, type it in, games from 1925. There's not a lot of statistics and stuff like that and all. So I'm going to go back to the beginning and start it off and give you some good insights, hopefully some good quality details on every game that the New York Football Giants have ever played from 1925 to 1980. So that wraps up the 2022 season. That wraps up my little series here. Hope you enjoyed it. I did too. And I'll see you again soon.